But we're going to be doing a little conversation, more of an open flow, about television in the age of social, or the age of social in the age of television. So before we get started, just want to do a quick kind of introduction of some of the people that are on the panel. Down at the end here, Hardy Tankersley, just want to give a quick update on who you are and what you do.
I'm Hardy Tankersley. I manage digital platforms for Fox Broadcasting, which I have to clarify is the 2 hours from 8 to 10 p.m. on your local Fox station. I have nothing to do with any of those other networks. We make all the digital properties that go with the primetime shows on Fox, things like American Idol and The Simpsons and Family Guy, and all the apps and the websites that go with them. That's all.
All right. Next we have Michele Fino.
Hello. Hi, I have my own mic. So I am Michele Fino. I am the SVP of Branded Entertainment for the Collective Digital Studio, which is one of the YouTube MCNs. So we have about 450 or so channels and high-quality content producers, and we program content for YouTube. And I've only been here about 5 months. I was at Fremantle Media for about a decade before that, working alongside Hardy on things like American Idol and X Factor. So that's me.
All right. Next we've got Claire McHugh.
Hi guys, I'm Claire. I'm from Dublin. You can guess by the accent. And I run a tech company there. We create tools for broadcasters to create second screen content. And most recently, we worked on a project called ShowPal that we launched with the Irish national broadcaster, which is a fully synced companion app to their primetime schedule. So it runs from like 6 p.m. to midnight.
Lisa Shaw.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I am the head of digital for Bravo and Oxygen Networks, which is part of NBC Universal. So we're responsible for creating all the digital everything behind what you see on those two networks.
Jeremy Toman to my left.
Hi, I'm CEO of Digit Media. We make a platform that helps TV programmers connect with their audience across social, mobile, web, offline, online advertising into where they might actually cue DVR recordings and watch the shows that these amazing companies spend lots and lots of money to make.
And I'm Jesse Redness. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Mass Relevance, formerly head of digital at USA Network, along with Lisa here. So as you can see, we've got a really eclectic group here. But that's great because what it does is it brings together the traditional linear, it brings together the kind of the new digital video aspect, as well as second screen companion app aspect here. And I think collectively there's got to be close to 100 years of experience in the TV
that
space?
Old. We're not in the demo anymore. We're not that old.
He only added the number after he looked at my
I was looking at Jeremy.
He was at like 60 before that.
But I think we can all agree a lot of passion around TV, a lot of passion around storytelling, and a lot of passion around digital and social. So that's kind of what we want to explore here. So, we're kind of approaching the age of the unified screen experience, the kind of converged world in which story is being told across many different screens. So the group here, I think, is a great group because they can tell stories about how they're experiencing their storytelling across all those different platforms. So what I wanted to start off was with just getting a point of view on, are we in the social age trying to tell stories? Or are we in the story age trying to work on social? So what's your point?
I think that you're going to get a different answer as you go to a different network. I think you have some very traditional models, some of the more mainstream shows where, does a Big Bang Theory or an NCIS really need to go do a social thing to keep their numbers up versus a new upcoming show, whether it's on a smaller network or even the mainstream network, where they're going to leverage social to offset, a massively distracted audience or the spending that they just can't keep up with.
I'm heavily in the camp that we're really in a story age, that I don't think that social storytelling has fully been realized successfully so far, but I'm really looking forward to it when it gets done. But we're still, I think people are drawn by a great story. So whether it's, some drama that's happening on Twitter, we were just talking real time actually. There's been some great stories of things happening, some fake, some real. I think that is the closest to social storytelling we've gotten, but very much in media, we're very much still story, and that's what drives it.
I would say we've always been in the age of storytelling, particularly the country that I'm from. That's how we pass on a lot of legends and traditions, and there's a really strong tradition of Shanachie, which is storytelling in Ireland. I think that I agree with Lisa. It's really exciting to see how social storytelling will evolve. But no, we're not anywhere there yet. But I think it's always been about the story, and always will be.
No, I'm just kidding. So I think there is a little bit of a generational shift. So I would like to think that those of us who didn't basically come out of the womb with a MySpace or a Facebook page are hands down in the storytelling age. However, I believe that the buzzword millennial, everybody talks about capturing the millennial audience, and fortunately or unfortunately, I believe a lot of millennials grew up in the social age. So how do we kind of pull them back in and wean them back in to make sure that story is at its core, and then ultimately it becomes shareable because of the story, not simply because of the medium in which it exists.
I think social is still today. Social is about story. It's not driving story. It's not the story, right? People are talking about the story. It's people tweeting their opinions of Breaking Bad, and that's where all the activity is, and that makes a lot of sense. But no one's quite yet figured out how to do a social story where you're really participating. I think the closest thing we have is these. Like American Idol, where the audience actually participates in the story. They determine what happens next week. It's a very sort of rough way of doing it, but I think people do feel a part of that story when they're actually voting on that person. The audience does feel a part of creating that story. I think we have an opportunity with the level of technology that has come along to make a much higher fidelity versions of that. And I think we're on the verge of a breakthrough. I'm sure you guys have seen pitches from everybody is now finally considers interactive to be mainstream. They know that the audience can talk back.
Right.
And now we can create shows that assume that the audience can do that, where it was always, until now, always a sidecar.
Although I struggle, obviously social is great for amplifying, but then I noticed that HLN is now calling themselves like the social network. But I'm like, okay, it's a social network, but what's the subject? That's why I don't think. I don't.
Social's a medium, not a subject.
Yeah.
Well, one interesting example. I was talking to the guy behind the way they're producing Kimmel, and in a lesser degree Fallon, where basically every segment they do is designed now to go straight to YouTube. It is designed that they no longer expect that someone will sit down and watch an hour of it every night, but will just get their little doses by watching, a thing with Justin Timberlake or some funny song or some clever interview. And that's actually, they've actually now shown that by creating those correlated events, it is actually reinvigorating a full episode watching. So I think that's an interesting dabbling where they leverage one to do the other.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So, I think there's been some great executions. Obviously, Last Chance Kitchen winning an Emmy, using social platform to tell stories. #Killer, Emmy nominated. We've got last week TNT launched Mob City with their adaptation, in which they launched the entire script on Twitter first before it went to air. Very interesting stuff. The one I really like is anyone from here familiar with The Beauty Inside? Intel's The Beauty Inside. Social storytelling all happened on the Facebook platform, updating characters in real time. So, what are some great examples that you've seen, and kind of why do you think that they're winning in social storytelling, even though it may not be, the final execution that everyone thinks is the win? But what do you think is doing a great job so far, aside from your own stuff?
I think that storytelling and content production has, in fact, shifted. It used to be all about making really good content, regardless of where it airs. Studio, television, digital, social. I don't care. For me, if a sponsor's paying for it, I'll air it on the side of a blimp and sell them dirigible rights. But the fact is, content production and therefore storytelling has shifted from talking to someone to talking with them. So one of the big gaps that obviously we worked on for a decade was American Idol. So that was the first foray in actually taking what the audience had to say and actually taking their opinion and having it affect the story. So in some of the cases of course I have to use one of my own examples, but when you put something up on YouTube and you turn off the comments, that has to be like the worst possible thing that you can do. The whole inherent nature of YouTube is that people can talk back. They can affect how long the episodes are, what happens next, what somebody's going to tweet, or if somebody's going to include Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. So in the case of one of our bigger properties, which is produced by Freddie W. I don't know if he's even up there, but called Video Game High School. The first season of the show, it was 10-minute episodes, and by far all the tweets and social and comments were longer, more. So the second season started off as 23-minute episodes for obvious reasons, for international distribution. And again, longer, more. We actually asked them, are you okay if we do even longer episodes? We're going to have to include mid-roll. Are you guys okay with that? Sure. So now the episodes are up to 35 minutes long, which of course has become an international distribution nightmare, editing aside. But that's just one of tons of examples of, come visit me. Okay, fine. We'll shift this show to be a road show versus a studio show, or longer episodes, or run like a Flock to Unlock contest to unlock a certain level of a Minecraft game that somebody is already putting out into the space anyway. This just uses the consumer and then hopefully also an advertiser associated with that to engage and unlock a certain experience at an even deeper level for the hardcore fans.
I think just to bring an example from Ireland, Operation Transformation is a show that it's a national show. It runs every January for people to get back in shape after they've eaten a lot at Christmas, but because we're such a small country, it's really easy to do things on a national level and measure it very easily as well. And one of the things that Operation Transformation did very successfully was it really integrated the people dieting around the country in groups, and they showed a lot of their YouTube videos of people having lost weight and that kind of thing. But they also gave them diet plans. Like there was 5 people you could follow in the show, and they each had a diet plan. You could go to a shop. You could go to all the major supermarkets in Ireland, and there would be, if you're following Jeremy, it's this aisle. If you're following Lisa, it's this aisle. Go and buy this stuff. So it was really, really well integrated. And I think that it's not so much storytelling, but it is more social TV.
Now, I'll give an example. We work with a bunch of different networks. BBC America, well, actually all of BBC. So Doctor Who is like the longest running sci-fi show in history, and if you don't watch it, it's actually pretty cool. You don't have to be as dorky as me to enjoy, but whatever. But they had this big event last month called the Day of the Doctor. It was the 50th anniversary episode of the show, and they only have their own world to market to. But what they did is, first of all, they had to simulcast internationally. Everybody saw at the same time, anywhere you were around the world. They had streaming online. They put it in movie theaters. But they relied on social promotions to get people aware of this thing. They did a bunch of different stuff around hashtags. They had multiple dedicated Tumblr blogs all around promoting the show. And then they pulled all of it back into their own independent website. So here it was BBC America. There it was bbc.co. whatever they do. And it was very comprehensive. There were games you could play, upload your picture and be a Doctor character. They somehow got Google to do, or I don't know if they got Google to do it, but there was a Google Doodle where the Google logo changed to be a Doctor Who game. I thought it was very, very well done. And they said it was the highest rated thing that they have ever aired. And obviously there was an existing fan base, but it seems like the social certainly helped promote that.
Did you go to a cinema to watch it?
No, because I'm binge viewing on season 6, and I didn't want the spoilers. Sorry.
I think there's a spectrum of storytelling. I mean, the storytelling that we just called storytelling, it's not story playing. That's a whole different thing. And I think a lot of the stuff is generating a community around a story. But I'm fascinated by some of the experiments that have been done. I thought the TNT Mob City tweet the script thing was a fascinating experiment that ultimately didn't work because Twitter turns out to be a lousy storytelling medium. Because it's backwards and it's not but a great community medium. And so trying to create what we're doing, some blurring between the community and the story, or allowing the community to play in something like the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, right, where the audience feels like they're playing a part in the story and they're affecting how the story goes. And I think you get that in Fallon, right? Is Jimmy Fallon a story? No, but he's a property. He's a community that creates stories. I'm also fascinated by the Steven Soderbergh Twitter novels, right? Where he's like trying to write a novel in Twitter, and it's really hard to follow. But I think it's a really interesting experiment.
Are we allowed to talk about challenges yet?
Just bring it up.
I mean,
Throw down.
What you raise is I think one of the biggest challenges with social storytelling it's so confusing because everyone's picking up pieces everywhere. So it's happening on Twitter, it's happening on Facebook, it's happening on and a lot of vendors have been coming to us and pitching like, I can be your aggregation app where it all comes in here and you can tell the story and you can pull in all the comments. But then to me, as a media digital property, I'm like, oh God, then I have to teach them how to download another app, and I don't own that app, and I don't want it to be near their app. So, and then Fox, that Peter turned in, they tried that thing. I don't know about you, but I had a very hard time jumping from YouTube and then
Summer
jumping to
break.
Twitter, and I don't know what the numbers were there, but I'm not sure that was that successful. So I think one of the challenges we have is how to reach an audience that's across all kinds of platforms, including your main platforms and the platforms you own. And then ultimately, it costs money to make these things. So how can you get a sponsor into all these places where, let's say, NBC has like disagreements with some of our frenemy other partners, social partners. So it becomes a challenge to how to tell the story and how to get into one place and what choices you make, as a business. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, how to tell social storytelling coherently, because ultimately a lot of people are really passive. Like we did this whole Last Chance Kitchen where, you see on Top Chef and then they compete and then they fight on the digital series to get back on. And then we did research afterwards. It was very successful, almost 10 million views. It did great, but then you ask the audience, would you rather have just seen it on television? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, and another issue and challenge I think that we're facing is specifically around Facebook and social. Love Facebook, but I'm assuming everyone here would be familiar with it, but most people who use Facebook are not aware that when they follow a property, that they might not necessarily see all of that property's posts, and they're certainly not going to see it in the right order. And if you ever need a great example, follow a sports team. So I'm a Steelers fan, and I follow the Steelers on Facebook, and every now and then I go on Sundays, and it's like, touchdown, kickoff, what a great fumble. Like, and then like
So
4 hours later, it's like halfway through the game. It's just, and that's Facebook controls that, and I don't think there's many solutions around that.
Maybe you just need faster internet.
Refresh.
So the struggles of real time playing a part in the aspect of storytelling.
Well, and that
ranking.
a storyteller now becomes at the mercy of how someone else's algorithm is telling their story, right? I mean, I don't interact with the people who actually make the stuff, but anytime you hear them quoted anywhere, this is how I made this story. If they want to incorporate #killer, they designed it that way. They didn't design it that Facebook's algorithm could just change, and now it's going to be in this order. Oops, right? It's a difficulty.
So with that, data insights, big data has been like the buzzword of the day here today, but out of big data, you're going to get big insights. And out of big insights, you're going to take big action. So you just touched on something that's really important. You're trying to tell a story in a linear fashion, but because of Facebook's algorithm, you can't actually accomplish that. I know that they've made some tweaks and changes and are actually going to start partnering with brands to open that up so that you can actually do linear flow storytelling on the platform. But how many of you have actually had that conversation yet with Facebook to say, hey, you know what? In order to play here and to have us telling a story on your platform, it needs to change. So is that something that you guys would go, Hardy or Lisa, and say, Facebook, we need this to happen in order to storytell on the platform?
Yeah, we tell them all the time. And they're like, well, how much would you spend
Exactly.
to get that? Well, okay, what's the economics behind it? Facebook is ultimately in the Facebook business. They're not in the television business. They're not in the nonlinear storytelling business. They're in the audience aggregation monetization business, which is a different animal. It's very difficult. It's sort of the whole education of an industry to get to a point, particularly even on the TV set. I'm sure you guys, and particularly Lisa, has these issues as well with TV producers, and you start talking about all this nonlinear stuff, you start talking about all this social stuff, and half of them, their just eyes glaze over, and they're like, is that what the kids do these days? And then the other half are like, that's really cool, how much are you going to pay me to make 5 more minutes of show, which costs whatever it costs, $1 million. And you're like, well, okay, what are the economics behind it? It's very difficult to build the business models that can support the investment to create all this social storytelling.
So really interesting, the other day, I think the chief research officer of CBS came out with a statement that basically said that Facebook has much richer social TV data than any other provider out there. I think it's a very interesting point of view. What's your take on that, and what do you think you would do with all that data? That's the thing. Everyone's saying big data, but what do you do with the data?
What's the value in it?
Yeah. First, I completely agree with it. We connect to users wherever they are. We're neutral compared to whose story, et cetera. We're just pure TV discovery. That's it. So, we can see already when we import a Facebook profile. If you don't know this, we import all your friends' stuff too, and the quantity of information that pours in about TV is amazing. And when we ask people to connect with the Twitter rates, just aren't there yet. I don't know. No, not. I sit neutral, but there's certainly more data to be found in Facebook. That said, and I said this on the previous panel, since we import all of your likes, and a lot of people, there was a big rush of liking when Facebook first enabled liking. And so, according to the tens of millions of profiles we've indexed, a top 10 TV show on Facebook is House. Right? So, good job, but,
It was canceled 3 years ago.
Right. Yeah. But it's still very well liked. It's got more likes
But
than...
it's in the syndication now.
It's very well lasted. Yeah,
It has-
and it's international.
But it has more
Hugely
likes than
international.
Orange is the New Black, for example. So what
That's
signal
not hard.
is that, right? How do, we all have to learn from that.
Well, the big data problem is that Twitter and Facebook traffic has almost no correlation with ratings, right? So is it different people doing different things? Is it the data is not representative? Is it which set of data is not representative? Is it maybe Nielsen's wrong?
Not enough Nielsen boxes?
Yeah, right. Who knows? So yeah, the big data problem is a A, I don't know what to do with it. B, theoretically, it's about targeting. Being able to personalize something for an individual, but we're in the broadcast business, right? We're in the odd business of trying to appeal to everyone, and so creating a show for females 19 to 22 is not a business that any of us can afford to be in. So ultimately, we end up with a pile of data that we don't know what to do with.
So let's just say that you did know what to do with some of this data.
One quick
What would you
example I
do?
wanted to mention. We are starting to do some of this stuff like with Facebook, and I think some other shows are doing this too, where in real time, like you'll see this on American Idol, you'll see it in the X Factor, you'll see in real time, women 35 to 49 prefer this contestant, or reflecting what the audience is doing in real time and using Facebook's demographic data to slice and dice that and display that within the show to give you kind of this real-time reaction of what the audience is feeling, thinking, expressing in real time, which is kind of cool.
And I
That's
think,
the
Lisa, you've
level
got a
that
great example of that,
that's
too.
the level we're at. If you watch the Orange Room on the Today Show, that's exactly the level they're at.
Yeah, exactly. Same
What's the example
system.
I was gonna use?
There was an example in which you used some Facebook data, demographic data, in one of your.
Oh yeah, we do that for our social editions. Exactly the same thing. It's like there's a Bravo show, and then it's a re-air, and then we say, it's basically like fun facts, like 18% of African American women, female so and so. But literally, we're exactly the same place because that's as much as the data is showing us at this point that we can make actionable. So and people love seeing stuff about themselves.
So Jeremy and Claire, for you guys, since you have second screen apps that are using social profiles for authentication, you're ingesting all the different APIs and gathering all that data. Let's say that you've got data points on 1 million people that like X Factor, and in all those data points, you see that 40% of the people like Pepsi as well. Is that useful to Fox or to Bravo?
Yeah.
Likely. I'll tell you where we think that the profile ad data network play comes together is as we look ahead. So if we know that 1 million people who like Top Chef, 1 million people hypothetically in our world like Top Chef. Now, what if we could come back to Lisa and say, these 200,000 people bought a car 3 years ago, right? And are probably in the market. These 700,000 are probably not in the market for a car, right? Where's that data interesting in, for example, their online efforts, right? Should Toyota be buying Last Chance Kitchen and L'Oreal be buying the live airing, right? I mean, there's a lot that we will get to do with this data in the next half a decade or so. I think right now it's very, very early. I think maybe it can supplement 360 campaigns and things like that, but I think a little too soon from where I see.
I mean, we launched actually just with Twitter in our app rather than with Facebook. And it was funny because along some of the shows that we show on TV3, which is including X Factor and X Factor UK, people who weren't on Twitter really wanted to get their comments in, and they were using the technical feedback form in the app to do so. So it was just like, oh my God, Luke is so great, or I hate that guy, and just like XOXO and all this kind of stuff. And we were just like, what is this stuff coming through? These guys really want to tell us what they feel. So we made a common plugin that they could actually use to say that stuff, and then that gets moderated by the guys that are pushing the slides live in the app, in the timeline on the right-hand side there. And, you know, their stuff is on the second screen and it appears, and they get a little bit of a kick out of it. It's great. But that's really as far as we've got with that. We're starting to do stuff with Facebook now, but I think we'll work that in along the ways of, these are the type of shows that these people like. But we're also able to ask them directly in the app. You know, there's a lot of poll stuff. Do you like this? Do you not like this? And we get a good percentage of feedback from that too. So because we are such a small audience, it's very, very easy to get that stuff.
By the way, we
Michele.
got customer service emails saying R.I.P. Brian. So Family Guy reference.
Family Guy fans, anyone?
But we,
Okay.
yeah.
And then, Michele, I know you've got a unique point in this as well, because your production, cycle is not nearly as long as Hardy's or Lisa's. So how are you using data to kind of inform content production?
It's a good question. The phrase big data, I kind of just use data because the only thing that we have is kind of a proprietary skimming tool in-house within the collective digital studio, so we can loosely track, if you're watching an Epic Mealtime clip. Epic Mealtime is the guys that make the extreme food. They'll go to Burger King and order 50 of everything and bring it back and make lasagna out of it. It's ridiculously popular. It stars like a 7-foot-tall Canadian guy. Anyway, we have a skimming tool in-house that it can kind of track where you came from within the YouTube sphere and where you're going to go next. We found out that people that watch Epic Mealtime, it skews and indexes over 200% with people that happen to watch the WWE. We don't have a current relationship with the WWE, but that information means I got to ride my ass up to Stanford and figure out a way to partnership with them so we can co-sell some content together in the YouTube sphere. Another good example is there's all these millennial reports now. We're all older and not millennials, so we need reports to tell us what millennials think. So one of the things is like millennials are 70% resonate with brands who have an affinity with a social cause or in the kind of do-good space. So then what do I do with that? I have a network of 61 million millennials that several times a day watch my content. So I took action and did a partnership with the biggest global organization for millennial social change called DoSomething.org. So it's like, if I can work with Do Something to help them find sponsors for their campaigns and then distribute content related to their campaigns using my social influencers against my 61 million subs, that's a home run.
I just want to give another example on big data and something we were able to do this year. So in my platform, we have this intent to watch meter. You can sign up for reminders of shows that don't yet air. We started in June tracking all the announced fall TV shows, and we just had an index where you just, here they all are, and you could set reminders for anything that looked interesting. Right before the fall season started airing, we took a snapshot, and we've since looked back on that snapshot, and just on pure popularity index without much algorithm to it, we correlated about 80% shows that people said they wanted to watch with those that got renewed versus those that got canceled. It's not perfect science at this stage, but it's interesting data to be able to come back to a network partner and say, you're not advertising show X well enough, right? You're not advertising Almost Human enough. You're missing the guys, or you're doing this, or your trailers aren't whatever, right? That's valuable data that TV networks can start acting on immediately as they lead into shows. We can't help them once it's aired. That's not our business. But being able to say, the promotions are not effective enough or are doing great can help fine-tune budgets, which online these days there's a tremendous amount more spray and pray than I think anybody would really like. So that's one actionable thing of data today.
But all this stuff is just the same stuff you got via traditional market research. You just have a slightly different angle on it, or it's just another point in the mix beyond your focus groups and your other research that you've been doing for 50 years. You know, you're not really taking advantage of the technology. The other piece about when you're talking about does Pepsi care about affinities? You know, yeah, they care, but at a sort of subjective level. No advertiser has ever come to our network and said, "Can you deliver me a smaller audience?" Right? They don't want to cut the audience up. People come to television because they want everybody all at once today. I need to deliver this message to everyone in America that I can hit. You know, can you do that? Yes. They don't say, "Can you? I just want these people," or "Can you carve it up between these 20 different messages because I'm going to run 20 different TV ads based on who these people are." Nobody does that.
Well, yeah, but they are doing that when they buy the digital stream of that
They
same
buy YouTube,
show.
yeah.
So
In
you know,
YouTube,
you've
we
got,
can do that,
You've got
so-
Freewheel out there that's then targeting the female demographic if it's a female product or whatever it may be. That capability is there, so they want
And that's
it.
a different business and a much smaller one today.
Very difficult RFP for me to process is I want a video to go viral, okay, and I want to hit 18 to 49-year-olds. Oh, okay. I would rather have somebody come up to me and say, I want to increase market share on left-handed Welsh women who like cheese. That's more specific. I can actually create a piece of content and with a social influencer that can affect that. Affecting 18 to 49 on YouTube is very hard.
Right, but also the value then goes up. As CPMs on display and video go down, when I can say, okay, Toyota, I'm going to serve this to your target audience, whatever it may be, and by the way, all these people have visited a website looking to buy a car in the last 2 months.
Right, or fix a car.
Then the value is going to go up, and that's what's going to make up for the difference, I'm hoping, in the CPM going down.
So we're running out of time, and I want to kind of get to one conclusion point here. Everyone in this room here, we're pretty much the purveyors of the next generation of what real interactivity is going to be across all these different screens. My son just turned 2 the other day, and we gave him a Kindle Fire. And I was tired of giving him my phone so that he could watch a show so I can go back to sleep in some points. So we got him a Kindle Fire. And when you think about it, second screen is going to be second nature for that generation. What we're doing right now is setting the stage for what, my 2-year-old, when he's 14, 15, whatever it may be, second screen is just going to be part of their every single day life. And right now, it's a very small part of what we see our playing field to be. But 10 years from now, it's going to be part of the overall